All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we're really diving deep into the life of J.D. Vance. You know him, right? The Hillbilly Elegy guy, the senator, the guy who's been all over the news lately.
Yeah, it's quite a story, isn't it? I mean, from the Marines to the Senate, with a best-selling book thrown in there's a lot to unpack.
We're going all in today. We've got his Wikipedia bio pulled up, some reactions to his VP pick from CBS News, the whole 9 yards.
Should be interesting.
Definitely. I feel like a lot of people probably know him from Hillbilly Elegy, but there's a whole lot more to his story.
Oh, absolutely.
So let's start at the very beginning. James Donald Bowman, born in 1984 in Middletown, Ohio. Not exactly, the typical start for a national political figure, is it?
Right, and those early years, they weren't easy. Parents divorced young, later adopted by a stepfather, became James David Hamill.
Whoa, wait a minute, that's 3 names already.
I know, right? He had a few before landing on J.D. Vance. But yeah, that upbringing, the poverty, his mom's struggles, all of that, it wasn't just personal history, it became the heart of his book.
And that book really resonated with people.
I did.
It's like he gave a voice to this whole group of Americans who felt like, like they were being ignored. Hillbilly Elegy was huge, a bestseller. I mean, some people were even saying it helped explain how Trump got elected back in 2016.
It's definitely part of the conversation.
But what's interesting is that Vance, he wasn't always a Trump guy.
You're telling me. But before we get into that whole saga,
oh, yeah,
let's talk about what happens right after high school. This is where things take, a bit of an unexpected turn. He enlists, joins the Marines, serves as a military journalist, even does a tour in Iraq in 2005.
You've got to imagine that experience had some kind of impact on him.
I mean, come on. The discipline, seeing a whole different part of the world, the realities of war.
Intense.
Yeah. It's bound to change the way you see things, right?
No doubt. And then, get this, he uses the GI Bill to go to Ohio State, and then Yale Law School.
Right.
Graduates in 2013.
From the Marines to the Ivy League. Talk about ambition.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder what was going on in his head back then.
Yeah.
And this is also when he officially becomes J.D. Vance, right before graduating from Yale.
Interesting. You think it was strategic?
Maybe. Maybe not. Was it about connecting with a wider audience, as he was starting to write? Or was it, more personal, like a transformation of sorts?
It's like his name changes. It kind of mirrors how his life doesn't follow a straight line. It's all these twists and turns.
Exactly. And speaking of twists and turns, how does a self-proclaimed hillbilly end up in Silicon Valley?
Yeah, that's what I want to know. Doesn't exactly scream Silicon Valley, does he? So we've got J.D. Vance, fresh out of Yale Law, and he decides, you know what, I'm not going to go chase those big corporate law firms. Instead, he heads west to Silicon Valley. What's the deal with that?
It's a fascinating jump, right? Spends a little time in corporate law, but then it's like, nope, venture capital is calling my name.
Venture capital. So for those of us who don't have MBAs, what are we talking about here?
Basically, you're investing in startups, hoping they're going to be the next big thing. Think Google, Amazon, you get the idea.
High risk, high reward.
Exactly. And guess who he ends up working with? Peter Thiel.
No way! The Peter Thiel, the billionaire tech investor.
The one and only. Thiel kind of takes Vance under his wing, becomes a mentor, a financial backer. You got to figure Thiel saw something in him.
Yeah, I mean, this is 2016. Hillbilly Elegy is this smash hit. Everyone and their mother is talking about it. But it sounds like Thiel saw beyond the book.
Right. It's like he recognized Vance's potential, this ability to connect with, let's be honest, parts of America that Silicon Valley doesn't always understand.
Because it wasn't just a personal story, Hillbilly Elegy, it was social commentary too, right?
Exactly. It was about the struggles of the white working class, and it really struck a nerve with people.
For better or for worse, right? I mean, some folks were calling it the key to understanding why Trump won that year.
Oh, for sure. Though not everyone loved it.
Oh, yeah. There was some backlash.
Definitely. People said it was too simplistic, that it didn't tell the whole story. Some critics even accused Vance of, almost exploiting his family's struggles for fame and money.
Wow. That's rough.
Yeah, it became this lightning rod for this whole debate about class, about culture, but the changing face of America.
It's kind of mind-blowing, though, because while all this is going on, while his book is sparking these huge national conversations, Vance is still knee-deep in the world of venture capital.
Oh, yeah, he's not done with that world yet. He even co-founds his own firm, Naria Capital, based in Cincinnati.
Cincinnati. Okay, so staying connected to his roots a bit.
It seems like it. And you know what one of their big investments was? Rumble, the right-leaning video platform.
Interesting. Very interesting. And this is where things get, I don't know, even more complicated when we start looking at Vance's political, well, evolution, I guess you could call it, because we were talking about how he wasn't always Team Trump.
Oh, no, not even close. Back in 2016, he was extremely critical of Trump.
Yeah, what was it he called him?
Reprehensible?
Reprehensible, even compared him to Hitler.
Whoa. Strong words.
Yeah. But then, fast forward to 2021, and what does Vance do? He decides to run for the Senate in Ohio. And not just that, he goes all in on Trump, apologizes for his past criticisms, deletes old tweets, the whole shebang.
It's like a complete political makeover. So what do you think happened there? Was it calculated? Or did he genuinely have a change of heart?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's hard to say for sure, but it definitely plays into this theme of reinvention that we keep seeing throughout his life. And it's important to note, even with the Trump endorsement, his Senate win, it wasn't a landslide. He won the Republican primary, but it was close. In the general election, well, it wasn't a sure thing.
So even with Trump's backing, there were still a lot of voters who weren't totally sold on J.D. Vance.
Absolutely. And then there's his whole nonprofit, Our Ohio Renewal.
Our Ohio Renewal, right. Wasn't that supposed to be his big thing? You know, tackling poverty, the opioid crisis, all that, back in his home state. Yeah, that was the idea. Big rollout, big names on the board, lots of talk about bringing real change to Appalachia. But then, crickets.
Crickets. So, like, what happened?
It's hard to say. Not much to show for it, really. Left some folks wondering if it was more about, boosting his political image than actually making a difference.
More about optics than impact.
Maybe. And then there's the App Harvest thing.
Oh, yeah. Wasn't that the farming company?
Right. In Kentucky.
Yeah.
Vance was all over that one. Big supporter. He even invested in it through his venture capital firm. But then, boom, bankruptcy in 2023. And it gets worse, allegations of terrible working conditions.
Yeah, I remember reading about that. Something about using migrant labor instead of hiring locally.
Yep, not a good look.
Yeah.
Really made people question his judgment, his commitment to the very people he claimed to represent.
No kidding. It's like, which J.D. Vance are we supposed to believe?
Right. But that's the thing about Vance. He's got a knack for reinvention, wouldn't you say? Fast forward to January 2023, he comes out, endorses Trump for the 2024 election, full circle.
From never Trump to Trump's biggest cheerleader. It's wild.
It's politics. And it gets even wilder. Just a few months later, Trump picks Vance as his running mate.
I mean, at that point, was anyone really surprised? Especially with all the rumors about, the Trump kids, even Elon Musk, all pushing for him.
It was a bold move, no doubt. But getting to the White House, that's a whole other ballgame, right?
For sure. And predictably, it wasn't long before some of Vance's past comments, let's just say, resurfaced.
Oh yeah, those skeletons in the closet.
We're talking about some pretty controversial stuff, like his comments on childless people, calling them cat ladies, I think it was. And then there were those remarks about Haitian immigrants.
Yeah, not exactly the kind of language that wins you a general election.
So the big question is, how's the public reacting to all of this? Is J.D. Vance the guy who can help Trump get back in the White House?
Well, the polls. They're a bit of a mixed bag. Some polls show him with, well, let's just say, not so great approval ratings. It seems like some voters just aren't sold on him. The rhetoric, the Trump ties, those business dealings, it's all a bit much for some.
So where does that leave us? After this deep dive into the world of J.D. Vance, what are the takeaways?
Honestly, I think we're left with more questions than answers, which maybe is the only way to end a story like his. Is he a champion for the working class? A savvy opportunist? Did he really change his views? Or are we witnessing a masterclass in political maneuvering?
It's like we're looking in a mirror, isn't it? A mirror reflecting the state of politics today. Confusing, messy, impossible to tell what's real and what's not.
You got it. J.D. Vance, he's a bundle of contradictions, ambition and struggle, reinvention and controversy. But one thing's for sure, he's a fascinating figure, and I have a feeling we haven't heard the last of him. Who knows what the next chapter holds?
That's the truth. And that's all the time we have for today. Make sure you check back next week for another deep dive into the lives of fascinating people just like J.D. Vance.